Say hi. Up. I love it. All right. Let's actually get on the road. All right. So I've brought this up before. It's been a while since I've kind of, taken taken aim, targeted these kind of lifters, but it's the it's the non-dependence, I would say. That's a decent title to describe them. It's the dudes who, well, I don't know, man. I don't want to get a caffeine dependence, so I don't really take pre-workout. Man. Yeah, I guess that's really the main one. Dudes who don't want to develop a dependence on pre-workout because what happens if one day I forget my pre-workout? I'm gonna have a scrappier lift. Um, it's just, for one thing, I guess I can see a point. And for dudes who are legit, like, caffeine sensitive to the point where even like 50 milligrams of caffeine at like 5 o'clock at night would really keep them up. If you're that guy, then a little bit of a slightly different situation. Maybe just get a stim-free pre. You know, but if you're not gonna get totally amped to the point where you can't sleep later at night, I don't know, man. I just don't necessarily see the problem. Like, sure, if I were to come in and do a lift without taking a scoop and a half of the Blue Shark gummy hostility, linked down below, plus a little bit of the roaring grape bloodshot, right? So stim free pre plus a stim pre. If I were to go in and lift without those things, yeah, maybe the pump would be affected. And for me, I think we all know that's a situation which I do not want to induce. Right? Anything that's going to hinder the pump, anything that's going to affect the pump, yeesh, I can tell you what, it's not going off on my radar. Or maybe it is, and I'm trying to avoid it. You get what I'm saying there. So I really just think you're missing out. And if you don't want to mess with the caffeine, if you're really locked in, you don't want to fuck with it, I'm not going to tell you how to live your life, but just get a stim-free pre, man. You're still going to benefit a ton from all the vasodilating, aka pump ingredients. I didn't take any pre-workout for the same reason for the first couple of oh geez, I think maybe at least a year and a half, maybe 2 years. No, not 2 years, maybe a year and a half. And the first thing I got into was not even a legit pre-workout with pump ingredients. All I would do is take a 200 milligram caffeine capsule pre-workout. That was like my pre early on. And do I think that my pumps would have been better back then if I had, had some citrulline and arginine and all sorts of other mushroom whatever extracts? I don't get too detailed with all the fancy pants ingredients at the bottom. But yeah, I think it would have done me some good. Now, it's not absolutely necessary, but being able to make incremental adjustments / improvements on all sorts of factors of your training, that stuff's going to add up, If, let's just list off a couple of the big three. I guess, let's assume you're eating your protein, you're getting your macros in, right? Food-wise, you're good. I'd say, up there, creatine, well studied. Take your creatine. That's another thing I don't get when people just don't do it. Honestly, you're missing out on free gains. So creatine, pre-workout, and then I'd say multivitamins, fish oil especially. That's going to do you good with your omega-3 fatty acids, whatever else. I can't say 100% for sure that I noticed this like to a proven amount of noticeability, but either way, what I'm trying to get at is when I take my fish oil on a consistent basis, and I don't mean just one, I'm taking like 5 capsules a day, I can tell that my joints just kind of feel better. If I go a little while without it, maybe it's just what's the word I'm trying to think of? Maybe it's just placebo. Maybe it's just the fact that I know I'm not taking it. It's like it makes me notice. But I swear my knees feel better, elbows, everything. Right? So, little stuff like that. Getting better sleep. It's not like an extra half-hour sleep is going to change the way you look dramatically from the guy next to you. Right? But if in every little factor of shit outside the gym that relates to progress, diet, supplementation, sleep, I guess that's really the big three, right? Whatever you can optimize, it's going to add up. And over time, even just a slight difference in, let's just say, rate of progress, that's going to change and change and change and change and change. Then you're going to be up here while somebody else is going to be down here. So that's just kind of how I feel about that matter. So basic gist of what I'm trying to say. Take your pre, take your multivitamins, take your fish oil, get some sleep, and stay hydrated with electrolytes. You get all those three things done, plus you get a good amount of protein and carbohydrates, some fats. I guess that's all there is to food. And when you go into the gym, I'd say you're going to have a pretty high chance of feeling good, feeling strong, getting a good workout, getting a good pump, coming back home, and after repeating that process a couple hundred times, you should start to see some legit gains. But actually getting back to what we're going to do here, I haven't even referenced it at all. Chest, same as normal. Doesn't really take too much thought for me. Gonna get some heavy pressing done. Some lighter cable pressing, like sort of bent over style like this, kind of converging. And then some flies, and that's gonna be it. I'm kind of questioning my own logic with the incline, right? Because I think I've got to change a couple situations up. My shoulder position while I'm pressing, / kind of just my overall style. Because what happens is, for me, when I'm doing a lot of my incline pressing, or really any kind of pressing, my front delts take over a lot. And I think it has to do with the fact that I'm kind of hunched, just naturally. Like if I'm sitting, I'm very kind of rounded over like this. So I think I got to change some stuff up with my stretching, loosen up in my, upper torso region up here, so that when I press, I can keep my shoulders nice and far back and just use my chest. But when I press an incline, it makes my, front delt activation a little bit more pronounced. So I'm starting to think maybe I should implement some lower degree incline, not like totally flat, but just a bit lower, just so I can get a bit more chest activation rather than some front delt. Because if I do a really good set of incline Smith, right, and I get a ton of front delt activation, then it's, I don't know, man, it kind of just kills the point for me. Like, because I don't want to do movements which activate secondary muscle groups, muscle groups that I don't want to be working to a pretty large degree. And after some of my chest days, my front delts are on fire. So what that's telling me is I am, the way that I'm doing my stuff is activating it far too much, to the point where I think I might want to change it up just a touch. So either way, still going to get a really good pump, get nice and fatigued. And I went to the gym last night at a nasty hour. It was like 2. This is actually a normal hour. I think there's going to be a New Year's crowd. Might see some random faces I haven't seen before. So let's, I'm going to cut to the first working set. Obviously, I'll do a little bit of not a little bit, a pretty extensive warm-up beforehand. Rotator cuff, triceps, forearms, everything that's going to come into play with my pressing. But let's get started. This will be a quick one. It's just one muscle group. So honestly, once I get moving on these working sets, it might only be 40 minutes or a little less. Okay, let's get freaking hyped up. Okay, help on these two. I got them. One more. Okay. That's perfect.
Awesome.
Thanks.
All you.
All right, typically, I'd probably just move on from, you know, whatever that first pressing movement was to another, like maybe Smith, maybe cable press, but I'm gonna change up a little bit and do kind of a back and forth style for chest today. So a few sets of heavy pressing, a few sets of flies. After this, maybe I'll go to, I don't know, cable press, incline Smith. I'll have to see. No. Yeah. One more. A little lighter. Oh, fine. Okay. Oh my goodness. Let's do some incline Smith. I had to do a bit of a feeler rep. Usually I'm not a fan. Usually I want to just know what weight I'm comfortable with and jump right into it. But I wasn't really sure of my strength level after those 2 sets of flies. But I should be able to throw these 3 around for at least 8. Obviously I'm going to aim for infinite reps. That's how most of your sets should be. So I'm going to sit here, get hyped up, burn out with partials. So I may not actually rack it all the way up to the top unless I feel like it was a good set. So whatever, go hard. You know, there's no reason not to push it to failure on the Smith machine, because even if you're way down here, like, this is kind of a skill. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this to someone who hasn't done this for a while, but even if I'm totally failed, I can still kind of just use my body, like kind of rotate my torso to bump the weight up just to this one notch above me. But best practice, get a spotter. I'm not doing it because, you know, whatever, I'm crazy. But let me play a song and throw the shit around. Okay. All right. Let me kind of deadlift this weight back up to the right height. And I think let's do one more. But instead of going to failure like that, I'll get to a point where I can do a complete rep. Know it's pretty hard. Then rack it, take a plate off, and do a drop set to 2 plates. I think that will feel fucking sick. Okay. All right. That's enough of that. That was okay. Honestly, I probably would have preferred to get a spot on that second part. Assisted partials, well, assisted reps, I think would have felt pretty freaking good. But let's go do some more flies. We're getting close to done. All right, another staple chest movement. Just standard pec deck. You know, I like cable flies. Like I like doing flies over there, sitting on the in between the cables, real far out slots, real far out like. But there's a different strength curve with something like a pec deck, because you got to think when I'm doing the cable flies, it's hardest up here at the top because the cables are pulling straight away from my hands, you know. But at the bottom, they're sort of pulling with my arm, so I don't have as much tension on my chest. Whereas on a pec deck like this, I mean, the pressure is just constant. Like if you were to put a scale in between my hands and the handle on a pec deck, it'd be pretty similar the whole way around. Obviously, it kind of depends on the strength curve of the pulley system, but whatever. And if I were to do that with the cable flies, heaviest, lightest, and then down here it'd be like zero. My hands aren't really exerting any force. So let's just get at least a set here, maybe a two. And honestly, this might be the last move before we check the pump. That was good. I want to do cable flies instead though. Let's move on. Let's just get a cheeky superset of front of the body, drop the weight, bent over, and we can go check the pump, man. I'm all ready. I mean, you tell me. That's more than a handful right there. Okay. All right. That's enough. Let's find somewhere to pose down. All right, now that was a good freaking chest day. Effort level, I feel, is always pretty similar for me. I think the only thing that's different, I mean, really, it's just my preparation. I think today I was pretty hydrated, nice and rested. So, of course, I'm going to have a freaking sick pump underneath. Honestly, that one you can already sort of see poking through the shirt without even taking it off. That's not a bad situation where the pump almost supersedes the pump cover. But let's see how we're looking underneath. It gets trickier and trickier to take these things off as time progresses. Well, as weight progresses, I think is a better term. But I'm freaking sleepy. So let's oh, what am I doing? Almost forgot to turn the exposure down to a nice and freaky level. One more. There we go. Oh yeah, see, this is way too fucking lean for a bulk. I've kind of been slow rolling into the into the calories, which obviously, or not obviously, but I don't really mind. Like, typically what happens for me in a bulk is, I'm chowing down on a shit ton of food right in the beginning. Like I jump straight to, 5,000-6,000 calories, and then I burn out. So I think maybe a slow approach isn't the worst idea for me. But of course, I do want to start getting a little bit more calories in. So I'm going to go home, and I've got at least half of or 2 pints left of vanilla ice cream. I'm sure that'll be the side dish to, whatever sort of ground beef or steak I end up eating. But, yeesh, this is a fucking sick pump. There's nothing else to fucking say about it. Oh. So, now I just get to get home and chill. Getting back to sort of how you may not feel totally into it every fucking day. I mean, it's true. Maybe some days, even if your effort level is there, you weren't totally hydrated. Just, I don't know, something's been messing with your mind, so you're not totally into it. But, yeesh. On those days, you still got to push it, just because, well, why wouldn't you? You still got to make the best out of what you got. But on days where you feel extra good, oh my goodness, man, it just feels like you have cheat codes on. But I can just pack up all this stuff, get in the fucking car. All right, now that was a lift I can get behind. It gets a little bit funky when it comes to maybe expressing how good a lift feels, because there's a couple of factors to it. Maybe, let me just bust out the first 3. So we've got just overall energy. If I'm nice and well rested, gonna feel nice and energetic. I want to get in there quick. I'll have some pep in my step when I go up the stairs, instead of just kind of trudging up them, or in the most tired case scenario, just taking the elevator because I don't feel like it. So kind of energy level. Yeah, I guess that kind of includes just overall feeling. Like if I feel kind of sick, maybe I'm a little groggier, but that kind of just sounds like energy level in a different way. And then there's kind of like, it's not even just strength, but maybe, well, let's just say strength to keep it simple. But, some days, just pumping out reps, it's like every rep is just, a big press on a tire, like a bike tire pump. Every rep is just, more and more pressure, where, I can tell even after those first 2 sets of incline bench, like I was already, maybe not halfway, but let's say at least a third of the way to fully pumped. And sometimes, usually if I'm, lacking on the hydration, I haven't been slamming my electrolyte mixes or, cluster dextrin shakes, whatever else. If I've got some low fluid levels, then it takes a little bit more time to sort of develop a really good pumped sensation. It's whatever muscle you're hitting gets a bit more stingy if it's not well, if it's not topped off on all of its fluids. So that kind of has 2 factors. So there's legit strength. Like I felt pretty strong today. Those 8 reps on the incline bench, I think there's 2 assisted afterwards. That felt like a really good set. That was a nice opener. But even afterwards, like when I got to the Smith machine, I still felt strong. But there was just something to the reps where even if I was only doing 2 plates instead of those 3, they still just felt more effective. Like it's just something about the contraction, which, sometimes you can't totally control whether or not it's going to be good or not. But as long as you go in and, push yourself, you're going to have a better chance. It's not like you're guaranteed to kill it. Nobody is ever guaranteed to kill it. But if you don't try, then you definitely won't. If you get after it, you got a chance. You got a fighting chance for sure. But if you never do, then what's the point of even thinking to expect any sort of results? You know, oh, what was I about to say? I was thinking something. Ooh, I was thinking something mad insightful earlier. Or maybe, no, I just heard a TikTok quote that got me going. Oh, it was like, yeah, basic premise of this, the beginning of this quote was like, you know, go all the way or don't even start. Go all the way or don't even bother. Which I don't necessarily think that's 100% accurate as a piece of advice. I think if you could do that, that's cool, right? If you got a thing, obviously, if you go 100% into it, you're going to be better off progress slash results wise. But sometimes I think that statements like that, or little, mantras or whatever, I think they can be a little bit dissuading, because I think the idea of that, kind of it'll sort of push people away who aren't necessarily, 100% into something. So, instead of like, oh, well, if I don't really think I'm going to be able to do it, I won't even try it. Yeah, whatever. You know, not cool, right? I mean, bust out let's quote Mr. Menser here. You never know how good you'll be until you try. So let's get with it. Like I like stuff like that a little bit more. And as you sort of progress, I mean, this doesn't have to be weights. This could be anything. Of course, if I'm talking about something, it's going to be about weights. But as you do it more and more, and maybe you kind of realize, like, okay, this is something I want to put a lot of energy into. I want to put a lot of time into this, because not only do I like the results I'm getting, but I also like the process of, making that progress. Right? Like, just training every day, I look forward to it. It's like my main thing. I could have a totally shit day. I could have, like, full of exams. I'm just imagining a really busy day for me. So, like, tons of exams, tons of homework. I gotta go do something. I gotta replace some kind of something. I gotta clean the whatever. A full day of, like, just chores. Just stuff that's kind of a bother. Not really any fun, But once I'm done with that main portion, kind of the hassle portion, and I get my little 2-hour gap with Jim, I'm like, all right, here comes the fun part. Here we go. And I like that a lot. Having something like that, I really think it can kind of, going from nothing to something, going from nothing to having something which you can put a lot of energy and effort into and make day by day changes, and you're just so into it, it's like what you think about more than anything else. I think to have something like that, that can, I don't know if I'm going to say it'll change your life, but I think it's going to give you a much better chance of having a good time. Because if you've always got something that you're looking forward to like that, plus, I kind of like lifting just in general, or I kind of preach about it just in general, not even in a bodybuilding context. I'm not saying everybody has to be a freak, but just by having a couple hours, not even a couple hours, even just an hour of legit physical exertion per day, that's just good for you. I've said this a couple times before, and I think every time I say it, it's worth mentioning. You got to remember, you're not just a dude walking around doing his tasks. You're still kind of you're still just a brain in your skull piloting this fucking big ass thing. And how you feel physically is seriously going to affect your overall subjective mood, right? So if every day you kind of feel groggy, you just sort of, do you really think you're going to have fun doing all your other shit? I'm not so certain. So everybody and their mom, I'm not saying you got to lift a crazy amount of weights, but I definitely think that honestly, I won't even say a number like that. 100% of people will benefit from, let's just say, 30 minutes of cardio and a bit of weight exposure. Now, I'm not saying 3-plate bench. I'm not saying 5-plate squat. But actually pushing yourself a little bit with weights, that is good for you. Even if I wasn't Or if at some point, you know, I stop bodybuilding style training where I'm really pushing it, I don't foresee ever not going to the gym on a consistent basis. You know, not even just for progress wise of maintaining like a freakish build, but dude, it's just good for you. You know? So if you get off put by the idea of the gym, I feel like I hear this a lot about girls, like, oh, I don't want to get too bulky. Look, not the case. Right, go in, curl something. You don't even have to do a gnarly workout. Right? The total layman who's never lifted before, he's still going to benefit a ton from just going into the gym, you know, picking up some dumbbells as heavy as he can go for like 10 reps, putting them down, do a couple sets, maybe do some chest machine. Even if you're doing some, you know, like upper lower split, just a bit of weight exposure, that is good for you. Now, of course, I'm not just gonna stop there. I want to fucking push it to the absolute limit all the time on every muscle group. But you know, that's just because I've got a bit of an obsession. So home, food, sleep, cardio in the morning, and then back. So I will see you tomorrow for all that.